This video is based on negative externalities in production. So if we have a look at the image, we can see that it's quite common actually with the tragedy of the commons, so common goods. So when we look at those types of goods which are non-excludable and rivalrous, so we can see here deforestation taking place, we can see clean air being polluted and the rivers, and we can see the damage that's happening to these communities because of the production and consumption of certain goods. So when we're looking at negative externalities in production, the first thing I'd recommend is draw the demand curve. The reason why you should draw the demand curve is just quickly draw it, get it out of the way, because it's not our focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the marginal social benefit equals the marginal private benefit. So what do I mean by the private benefit? This represents the benefits that consumers receive from consuming goods. So it reflects the demand curve in the free market. The marginal social benefit, though, it has the formula of private benefit plus external benefits. So the private benefits relate to the first and second party, and the external benefit is the third party, so those outside of the transaction. So those outside the transaction, are they benefiting from this good? Now, what we are going to do is we are going to assume that they equal one another. The reality of the situation is that they don't, but because it's not our focus and our focus is on production, we're going to assume that they do. So this, in other words, it means that the distortion or the market failure is occurring on the supply side rather than the demand side. So the free market allocation of this resource is where the marginal private cost equals the marginal private benefit, and this is at Q1. The issue with Q1, and we'll see this soon, is that it's considered to be too high. And we'll look at the reasons why. So the marginal private cost represents the cost incurred by the producer. So if we think in that image, we saw a factory, and that factory is producing, manufacturing goods. All of the resources and the inputs, everything to operate in that production process is going to come at a cost to the firm, and that will be represented with this supply curve. So in the free market, that interaction between the supply and the demand curve and that market equilibrium shows us the allocation of the resource. But at this allocation of the resource, they are not acknowledging or taking into account the effects it is having on society. And as we can see, when we bring in the marginal social cost curve, that marginal social cost is greater than the marginal private cost. So what does that mean? Well, again, we look at the formula. The marginal social cost is the private cost, so what I just mentioned about the first and second party, but plus the external cost to the cost of the third party who are not directly involved in the production of this good. And as we can see here, that suggests that the external cost is significant, and it's meaning that the social cost is exceeding the private cost. So what we want, really, is we want it to be socially efficient at Q2, because at Q2, that is where marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit. And this is where the market failure is taking place, because it is being overproduced. It's being overproduced at Q1, where it'd be more socially efficient at Q2. And this is why we have the deadweight loss. The free market allocations Q1 is greater and it's overproduced compared to Q2, where that's socially efficient equilibrium. So as we can see by the arrow, that arrow represents that external cost at that free market allocation. And the deadweight loss is really pointing to the socially efficient equilibrium of Q2.